All right, so last week we were talking about how to graph exponential functions. Now, exponential functions, as I remembered, I came and I mentioned something like y is equal to 2 times 3 to the x, right? That's an example. Another case we saw is like, what if I say y is equal to 2 times 1 over 3 to the x? So we talk about the base being more than 1, like in our first example. The base is 3, so it's an example more than 1. We said that function looks like it's going up. Now, when the base it's a positive number less than 1, the graph looks like it's going down, right? We talked about that last week. Now, we're still going to graph exponential functions, but we're going to move into what we call shifting, moving, right? We can shift sideways, so it's going to go to the right or to the left. Or we can shift up or down, right? We're going to be shifting. We're going to be moving stuff. All right, so let's take a look. Question number 23. The base is 1 over 3. So I'm expecting this graph to go down as it is. Now, I remember one method that we talked about last week is I'm going to make a table, x's and y's, and I'm going to say, well, my first number is 2. Right? You guys can see where I get the 2 from. So when x is equal to 0, y is equal to 2, right? We mentioned that last week. Now, if I go on the positive values, right, I have to, in order for me to get the next number, I have to multiply by 1/3. But if I go backwards, I have to multiply by 3. Remember, negative exponents undo the fraction. So I'm going to think of negative values of x. So -1, -2, why not -3? I can go as far as I need to. And then my first value of y is 2. This next value of y, I'm going to say it's 6. I multiply by 3. I know here my base is 1/3, but because I'm going backwards, I'm going with the negative exponents, I'm multiplying by the reciprocal, which is 3. Okay, so when x is -2, y is going to be 18. Because remember, I multiply by 3. When x is -3, y is going to be positive 54. Now, you might even ask, well, what's the -2 with the x? Now, here we're going to shift. Now, with the x, we're going to shift sideways. So we're going to shift right or left, but it's going to be opposite of what we usually think. -2, we're going to move to the right. If I had a plus, we're going to move to the left. So it's opposite of what we usually think. Now, moving to the right, that means my x value, I'm going to add 2 to my x value. So, matter of fact, let me write what I just said right now. For my x value, let me add 2. I know it says x minus 2, but when we shift sideways, it's opposite of what I think, what I usually think. So I'm going to come up with my new x values. Let me create my table of x and y. My y values, I'm not going to change. So let me just write 54, 18, 6, and 2. So I'm not going to change my y values. It's just on my x values, I'm going to add 2. So I'm going to have -1, 0, 1, and 2. Notice how each of my x values I added to. All right, I have points now. -154, I cannot really graph that one, right? It's off my chart. The next one, 0, 18. Now that one I can graph. Point is right there. 1, 6, I can graph that one. It's right there. And then the point 2, 2, it's right there. When I connect my points, just like last week, this thing, it's approaching 0. It doesn't quite reach it though. Okay, so that's it. Let's take a look at question number 24. When I come up with original X and Y values, I see my base is 2. So I expect the graph to go up. My values that I'm going to choose for X are going to be positive since my base it's a whole number. I'm going to choose 0. Let's go 1, 2, 3. Why not 4? Now, my first number or my Y value is going to be 1/4. You guys can see where I get the 1/4 from. In order for me to get my next value, I have to multiply this by 2. 1/4 times 2 is 2/4, better known as 1/2. 1/2 times 2 is 1, and then times 2 is 2, and then 4. And as a matter of fact, let's get the next point, 5/8. Okay, now on my X value, let me highlight this. It says X minus 2. So I'm going to go opposite. On my X value, let me add 2 on my X values. So coming out with my chart here, I'm going to come up with the tables of X and Y values. I'm not going to do anything to my Y values. So are 1/4, 1/2, 1, 2, 4, and 8. So I'm not doing anything to my Y values, only my X values. I'm adding 2 to each of them. So my values are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right, so let me plot these points. 2 1/4. Ooh. Let me see what I can do here. 2 and 1/4. It's about there. 3 and 1/2. It's about there. 4, 1. Now that's easy to graph. 5, 2. 6, 4. And then we have 7, 8. That's going to look something like this. The base is more than 1. So it's a 2 in this case. The base is more than 1. I expected the graph to go up. And I shifted. I moved this 2 to the right. Okay. Now, let's take a look at question number 5. My shifting now for questions 25 and 26, my shifting is going to be up or down. First of all, let me imagine of the function. Let me think of the function y equals 2 times 1/3 to the x. I'm ignoring this minus 1 at the end for right now. I'm just thinking of y is equal to 2 times 1/3 to the x. My base is 1/3. So I expect the function to be going down. So let me come up with initial x and y values. Because my function is going down, I'm going to start my zero somewhere over here. And I'm going backwards. So for my x values, let me think -1, -2, -3. My initial number, when x is equal to 0, y is equal to 2. That's always this number right here. And because I'm going backwards, the reciprocal 1/3 is 3, right? Remember, reciprocal, you flip the fraction. The reciprocal is 3. So in order for me to come up with the previous number, I'm going to multiply by 3. All right, so we start with a 2. So my next number is 6, 18, 54. Each time I multiply by 3. And now I'm going to come back to the number that I ignored at the beginning. Remember, I ignored this -1. All right, on my y values, so y values, let me subtract the 1. For the y value, we treat it the way we see it, y -1. So let me leave my x values alone. I'm just going to subtract 1 from the y. So let me make this table here of x's and y. Again, leave the x values alone. So -3, -2, -1, 0. But on the y value, subtract 1. So I get 53, 17, 5, and 1. Let me plot those points. -353, yeah, that's off the chart. I'm not going to be able to graph that one. -217. Okay, that one I can graph. It's right there. -1, 5. We also have 0, 1. Okay. Now this graph is not going to be approaching 0. This graph is going to be approaching -1. Remember how we subtracted 1 on the y? So it's not going to approach 0. It's going to approach -1. All right, so my graph should look like that. Notice how my graph is not approaching the x-axis, not approaching 0. It is approaching -1. All right, let's take a look at our next example. I'm looking at this as y is equal to 1/3 7 to the x. My base is 7, so the base is more than 1. I expect this graph to be going up. So let me make a table of x's and y values. I'm going to say my first number is 1/3. When x is equal to 0, y is equal to 1/3. For my next number, I have to multiply by 7. So for x values, let me just think x is equal to 0, 1, 2. For my y value, multiply this by 1/3. So that gives me 7/3. And then the next number gives me 49/3. Some of you might be like, well, fractions are not that great. Decimals are better. Okay, so let's grab our calculator. 1/3 as a decimal, it's about 0.33. 7/3, right? 7 divided by 3. It's about 2.3. 49/3, like 49 divided by 3. That gives me 16.3. So we prefer this as a decimal. There you go. All right. So now let me change my y values. Right, there's -1 at the end. I'm gonna go y -1. So on my y values, let me subtract the 1. So let me make a table. My x values are not going to change. So 0, 1, 2. My y values, let me subtract the 1 from each of them. So I have like negative 0.67. I have 1.3. And I have 15.3. From each of my y values, I've subtracted a 1. Okay, let me plug this in. My first coordinates, x is 0, y is equal to negative 0.67. It's about here. Then when x is equal to 1, y is equal to 1.3. when x equals 2, y equals 15.3. Let me connect my points. Looks something like that. Now, one thing, notice it is going up, right? When we read the graph from left to right, usually words, when we read words, we read them from left to right. Same thing with math. When we read graphs, we read them from left to right. It is going up. It is not approaching on the left side. It is not approaching 0. It is approaching -1. So the shifting, right? The moving sideways. We're going to move sideways in questions 23 and 24. The minus or plus, it's with the x value. Notice in my case, it says x minus 2. Now, questions 25 and 26, we move up or down. The -1 was not with the x, was at the very, very end.